ခဲ့တဲ့၃ရက်ကျော်ကသတိပဋ္ဌာနသုတ်တံဘောလေအစဥဒိတမှာဣဒဘိက္ခွေဘိက္ခုကာယေကာနုပစ္စေဝိဟတိအတ္တပိသမ္ပဇာနောစတိမှာဝိနိယလောကေအဘိজ্ජာဒေါမနသံ
Some 3 days ago, Sayadaw-ji spoke about the Pali from the outline, Odesa, at the beginning of the Satipatthana Sutta, Ita Bhekkhave Bhikkhu Kaye Kayanupassi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanasang. And Sayadaw-ji spoke about Anupassana in regard to this Pali. He described how what the components of Anupassana are, this repeated observation of bodily actions, Kayanupassana, repeated observation of feelings, good, bad, or neutral, repeated observation of the various thoughts, planning, imagination, wholesome mind, defiled mind, that is Chittanupassana, and observing every time there's a general object, Dhammanupassana. Sayadaw-ji described these forms of Anupassana, and he talked about what Anupassana is in relationship to what the practicing yogis encounter during their practice. Sayadaw-ji said that Anupassana means repeated observation, repeatedly looking and seeing again and again. So Sayadaw-ji started to talk about this. And among the components of Anupassana, Anupassana is made up of 3 factors: atapa, virya, ardent effort, sati, and sampajanya. And among these 3, Sayadaw-ji started to speak about atapa, virya. This means making intense effort, ardent effort, to dry up the moisture of the kilesas slowly, and finally to burn them up completely. Today, Sayadaw-ji will continue to speak about atapa, virya, intense effort. In the Pali, there are 3 words: atapi, sampajano, satima. These 3 words express what makes up an upasana. Every time a bodily action arises, every presently occurring object of physicality, of the group of matter called kaya, while that is happening, this is called the object of observation, or the presently arising object. And applying intense effort in order for sati to stick to this arising object every time there's a bodily action. This is called atapa. One can't be a bit lax at all. One can't be casual. One has to work intensely. Atapa, this ardent effort, is not cheap. It's praiseworthy. It's valuable. So one who possesses this, one who is able to observe the objects with this intensive effort, is called atapi. One who possesses ardent effort, atapavirya. One who is practicing intensively. In this place, the Buddha did not use the word virya. He said atapa or atapi. And the meaning of this is that our effort can't even be a little bit lax. Effort has to be the best quality. This effort can dispel, this is the effort to dispel papa, or unwholesomeness, to prevent it from arising, and if it has arisen, to dispel it and make sure that it doesn't arise again. This effort is to create a wholesome mind that wasn't there before, and to develop this beginning wholesome mind bit by bit, one time, one moment after another, 1 minute after another, hour by hour, day by day, to make it bigger, to make it better, to increase it. This only happens if one has courageous effort. And this is the most important element needed to dispel unwholesomeness, akusala, and to develop wholesomeness, or kusala. And it's called an element, or dhatu in Pali. And it has 3 parts. Effort has 3 parts: arambha dhatu, nekama dhatu, and parakama dhatu. And Sayadaw would like to explain about these 3 parts in terms of what the texts say and what happens in practice. Among these 3 elements of virya dhatu, the first, arambha dhatu, is the effort that it takes to launch. It's launching effort or initial effort. It's the effort that we make at the beginning. So initially, people don't have any effort to keep the mind clean. Except for the time that we're asleep, the mind is low and base. One doesn't make any effort to do anything else but let the mind go. So what happens most of the time is that there are kilesas arising. And the heat of raga, dosa, and moha, greed, hatred, and delusion, they make the mind hot. And these defilements, the defilement of greed, of anger, of delusion, they make the mind unclean. So without effort, the mind is low and base with these qualities of raga, dosa, and moha. And one doesn't know that the mind is unclean. If one knew, one would search for a method to make the mind clean. But not knowing, beings don't search for a method. And therefore, what happens all day long, with every seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and so on, all day long, akusala, unwholesomeness, is what is happening. Of course, there may be a little bit of wholesomeness here and there, but because it's the predominant thing that is happening is unwholesomeness. So this unwholesomeness is called papa, because it makes our life very low base, not good quality. And if beings, because of unwholesome mind states, if beings then transgress, they become even lower. And if one isn't able to control the mind, then one's basic mentality is also low and base. And one not knowing, one may turn to false beliefs, one may go the wrong way because one doesn't know the right way. So one will believe in this and that, one won't know how really to make one's mind clean and to do wholesome deeds. So basically, many people, most beings, just end up with having done a lot of kusala. So the Buddha saw that because of unwholesomeness, beings suffer. He saw that this unwholesomeness is the path to suffering. And he taught the path to happiness, of performing kusala and developing happiness. This needs virya. And it's significant that in giving the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha used this special word atapa instead of virya. And the meaning of this is that one should always have active effort. This effort has to be developed. It has to be fed, nursed. And this is called, doing this initial development of effort is called arambha dhatu, or launching effort. So, for intense effort to arise, one needs to know that this Dhamma of Satipatthana is the sure path, the one path, the single path that leads to 7 benefits, beginning with purity of mind. This is the practice of observing the arising object of kaya, vedana, citta, and dhamma. We have to understand that this path of practice leads to 7 benefits, beginning with purity of mind. We understand this whether we hear about it or read about it. We come to know. So this is knowledge. It's called sutta maya jnana, that is knowledge that is gained by learning or hearing. And when discussion is involved, then of course it's cinta maya jnana, reflective knowledge. So when one believes, one comes to believe, knowing that this path of practice leads to these results, then one comes to believe that, yes, this path can bring about those benefits. So faith is awakened. And once faith is awake, then there will be the zeal, chanda, desire to gain the benefits. One wants to be pure. One wants the mind to be pure. And to be free of sorrow, to be free of lamentation, to be free of physical pain, mental distress, and to put an end, finally, to lobha, dosa, and moha, to dispel them completely, and to gain true peace. So these are the benefits that come from practice. And only if we have the chanda, or wholesome desire to gain these, will we go further. So having chanda, one will come to a place like this, called in Pali asama. That means a place to put out the fires of the kilesas. So only then, with this knowledge and faith and desire to gain the benefits, coming to the place of practice like this, one will make intense effort, one will work to develop intense effort. But if one doesn't know the benefits of Satipatthana practice, or if one knows but doesn't have faith that these benefits can happen, or if one doesn't have any desire to gain the benefits, or if one's desire isn't pure and clean, or if one's desire isn't strong, then when one gets to a center like this, one won't be able to just devote oneself to making the effort needed in the practice. One won't be able to just practice without regard for life and limb. One won't be able to practice courageously. So without courageous effort, there won't be any joy in the practice. There won't be any piti, strong joy. There won't be any tranquility, passaddhi. And without tranquility, there won't be happiness, sukha. This sukha, gained through the practice, is better than the happiness of any sense pleasure. But until one gains this type of happiness through the practice, faith is not all that strong. With sukha as a base, so our effort builds bit by bit. So this working step by step at the beginning of the practice is called arambha dhatu. We put the mind on the abdomen, and when the abdomen rises because of the air going in, we make the effort to get our mind there right at that moment, to observe the rising. We have to apply effort, and this is called launching effort. And the falling, when the abdomen falls, we also have to make the effort again to get the mind there right at the moment of the falling, to see what happens. So every rising, every falling, again and again, one has to make this effort to get the mind there. And this is called atapavirya. And at this stage, when we just make effort time and again, it's the initial effort, launching effort, that is needed to get our practice going. And in walking meditation too, we have to put the mind on the leg. And every time the leg lifts up, we have to make sure the mind is there to be with the lifting. Every time the foot moves forward, we have to make the mind be there, applying effort. Every time the foot is placed down, we have to put the mind there. So we have to put the mind on the leg time and again with every lifting, every moving, every placing. We put our mind there each time. We can't be lax or casual. We have to make intensive effort, repeated effort. And it's not just sitting and walking either. We have to observe every bending, every stretching, every movement of the limbs, every opening and closing of the eyes, blinking. Every bodily action has to be observed. But at the start, because we don't have enough ability yet, we haven't practiced enough, we haven't exercised enough, we aren't able to do this. So at the beginning of the practice, we just have to be very patient. So here Sayadaw would like to speak about how in the world, when we're trying to learn something, whether it's trying to get an education or learn a skill, if we don't know how to go about learning what we want to learn, we can go the wrong way. So when we try to get an education or learn a skill, we have to study repeatedly. We have to keep on working to gain this knowledge that we want. And only then will we be able to get it. And when we're trying to make a living too, we have to work to do that. We have to apply effort, and if we don't, we won't be able to succeed in our work. So, as we're going about trying to get an education or trying to get our work life together, as we do this, sometimes we get lazy because we don't yet see the results, the good results of our work or our study. And when we're doing work, if we can't apply effort, if we develop the habit of being lazy, then we'll certainly be poor, or we'll come to suffering. So one has to overcome this tendency to be lazy. So, and at the start of the practice, before this, one is used to just living very freely. One isn't used to having to be so disciplined. So sometimes we forget to make effort when we're practicing. And when that happens, kilesas enter the mind, but we don't know it. So we're not aware of how they enter when the effort is lax. So what we need to do is to increase our effort. So we need to increase our efforts so that we can overcome difficulties. So just like when we get an education or when we're working to try to make a living, we need to overcome our laziness in order to succeed. And so too, in order to get the upper hand over the kilesas, among them, the one we need to first work with is laziness. We need to increase our effort. And this increased effort, or persistent effort, is called nekkhamma dhatu. So starting yogis, because they haven't yet realized the benefits of their practice, they have to work to overcome this tendency to be lazy. And this type of increased effort is called nekkhamma dhatu, or persistent effort. The Buddha used the word kusita to describe one who doesn't have effort, and he said that he used also the word hina viryo. That means that the effort has been lost. So one has to make intense effort to observe the object when it arises every time. And if virya, effort, is not there, then the mind has no ability to withstand the object. And therefore, one is overwhelmed by kilesas. Such a one who makes no effort in the practice dwells in misery. That means sitting, standing, walking, lying down, whatever one is doing, when there's no effort in the practice, one dwells in misery. And this is because it's said in Pali, Vokeno papakehi akusalehi dhamehi. Because one is all mixed up together with these unwholesome dhammas called akusala, these are the opposite of wholesomeness. They are the opposite of kusala. And these unwholesome dhammas are what bring us down, so they're called papakehi. They make our life low when they occur in our mind. So, for example, when one sees an object that is enticing, that inspires one's lust, without effort to observe the object, lobha arises, greed arises. And this greed can become strong, and it can even lead to transgression. If a detestable object arises without any effort to observe, then there will be anger, dosa, and anger can lead to hatred and can lead to transgressions. And further, one can just let the mind go, just letting the mind go wherever it wants. So these all are unwholesome. They are the opposite of kusala. And to have to live together with these mental qualities is miserable. For everyone, no one is accepted when they have not gotten the benefits yet from the practice. Laziness tends to come in, and the mind wants to withdraw. So to overcome this mind, this retracted, withdrawing mind, that we have to increase the momentum of our effort. And if we do this, we will be able to overcome kosaja, which is the laziness, the state of being lazy. So what's needed to do this is to use effort to observe the arising object every second of the time. So just recently, a young man from one of the Western countries left the retreat, and he had practiced about 2 weeks. And he didn't practice with enough effort, so he didn't get Dhamma happiness. The happiness of the Dhamma is far better than the happiness of any sense pleasure. The happiness of a clean mind is a great happiness. But he didn't get to that point, and he said that he has happiness when he's together with his sweetheart, so he wanted to go back to her. And so if one is satisfied with the happiness that comes from sense pleasures, this will be the tendency. But the happiness that can be gained through the practice is far better than that happiness. And the happiness of the practice, the happiness of the Dhamma, can only be gained when one makes effort to do the practice. So if one doesn't make enough effort and then gives in to the mind that wants sense pleasures, then one's going to go the wrong way. One's going to miss the chance to develop the practice and to gain a much better happiness. So this is why the Buddha said that kusito dukkhaṃ bhikkhave kusito viharati. So the one who is slack with regard to effort dwells in misery. Vokeno papakehi akusalehi dhamehi, because they're mixed up, living together with these low defilements of mind which bring us down. So these defilements may be small, medium, or large, but however many there are, to have to dwell together with akusala is miserable. And to overcome laziness, one needs to make the effort to observe the object every time it arises. Starting with the rising and the falling, one needs to make the effort to observe the object when it arises. And as we're doing this, from time to time, if we don't see the benefits, laziness will come in. So, laziness, if it arises, must be noted. And then one just simply needs to keep on going. So if one can do so, the laziness which gives raga, dosa, and moha a chance to arise is eliminated. And we eliminate the possibility of raga, dosa, and moha arising when we overcome laziness. Virya does not give these akusalas a chance to arise. Laziness is what lets them in, and virya is what keeps them out. So an analogy is how we deal with contagious disease. We try to keep from catching a contagious disease, and if we get it, we try to cure it as soon as we've got it. So the kilesas are like a contagious disease, and we need to prevent the kilesas, and if they arise, we have to cure them. So for starting yogis, prevention and cure of kilesas is very important. And for this, what is needed is the increased effort, persistent effort called nikama dhatu, which boosts our effort up so that we're able to overcome laziness. So in order to gain the upper hand over kilesas, one has to launch one's effort. One has to make initial effort. But once we've started, due to causes, if laziness comes in, we have to step up our effort. We have to work persistently to increase our effort. So these two levels of effort, aramba dhatu and or launching effort, and nikama dhatu, persistent effort, are all that Sayadaw will speak about today. But tomorrow Sayadaw will speak about what happens when this persistent effort, nikama dhatu, becomes strong. Then one comes to taste the Dhamma and gain Dhamma happiness. And at this point, when one starts to gain the happiness of the Dhamma, one loses interest in the happiness of sense pleasures, and one comes to value this happiness that is far better. And valuing this happiness, one makes a type of effort that keeps on increasing stage by stage until one reaches the goal. This is parakama dhatu, the third level of effort. And Sayadaw will talk about that tomorrow. That's all for today.